Divorce lawyers of Reddit. What's the most outrageous reason someone filed for divorce? Was allowed chewer at the dinner table. He developed a complex and literally needed out as he couldn't bear to eat with her. Edit. This has gone gangbusters. Thanks guys. This sounds like a scene for B plot. She's an audible masticator, George. I can't handle it. I've been taking her for soft food, soup, noodles. Once I told her this breakfast place had the best oatmeal in town, just so she wouldn't order the French toast. This is more of an Elaine subplot. Finds the perfect guy, but he's a noisy chewer. And then, yada yada yada. But, you yada yada jadded over the best part. No, I mentioned the bisque. Taught the parakeet certain cuss words for his wife. Ha ha ha. The parrot lives with the man now. I thought about going towards family law, and then I realized I'm gonna have to deal with things such as who's gonna get the parrot and grandma's vase. Nope. Now you see that technically falls under bird law. Says the guy who knows nothing about the law. I worked for a law office, where the owner would talk about the man who sued for divorce, because his wife would no longer allow him to use a loaded gun as a marital aid. She had apparently agreed to it at some point, and was fine with the gun, as long as it was empty, but that just wasn't good enough for him. Eater, since some folks need it spelled out, by marital aid, I mean a dildo. He wanted to stick a loaded gun in her vagina as part of their sex routine. She was down for it, as long as the gun was empty, but that wasn't good enough, and he thought this was reasonable grounds for divorce. Also, I wasn't trying to be pretentious by saying marital aid, I just really didn't want to have to type out that he wanted to use a loaded gun as a dildo, but I guess nobody's leaving this thread happy today. Fuck. Yeah, that's fucking terrifying. My client was the outrageous one, so my heart went out to his poor wife. He had OCD which manifested primarily financially, so he made their lives a penny pinching hell. Examples: he was obsessed with avoiding unnecessary driving, wear and tear on the car, gas expenses, so he cut the whole family's hair at home, and never let them eat at a restaurant, or go to the movies. Weirdest of all, he kept one toilet paper roll on him at all times, and you had to get one square from him, before you could go to the bathroom. He never gave more than one square. Wife finally got fed up, and left him when 1, he gave her bangs during an in-home haircut, and 2, their daughter was so traumatized by the toilet paper thing they couldn't potty train her. Also, he hated paying his divorce lawyer bill. He was also an old-fashioned mega-Catholic who considered divorce a deadly sin. He viewed my whole job as an unnecessary, and sinful, expense. Holy shit, 1 square? 1 fucking square? Does he shit rabbit pellets? That guy is a monster. Yeah, that got me too. If I was the wife I'd start wiping myself with his shirts or something. He doesn't like it? Well, give me some fucking toilet paper, then. I've heard socks are good for this. I too have heard this. My dad was a divorce lawyer. He had a client who wanted to divorce her husband for 2 reasons. He did not have enough hair on his chest. He did not drive fast enough. Keep in mind this was in the 70s when chest hair was a bit more important. Shit, yeah. It would have been embarrassing to show up late at a pool party and your man not having a decent chest bush. A luscious mane of hair from my chest pubes down to my ball throw. Colleague handled a case where money was not an issue, but the kids were. Neither parent wanted them. My parents always told each other when they were fighting that if they got divorced the other had to keep me and my brothers. On a positive note, you kept your parents' marriage together. She was kidnapped in Mexico and he refused to pay ransom. Eventually her family managed to pay, and she was left on the side of the road. It is not outrageous as in petty, but outrageous as how absurd that is. Edit to answer all the questions. I don't know how much they wanted as ransom. But it was substantial as the conversation between her family and him was how he had it liquid, and they had to liquidate investments to get that amount. She may have told me, she may not. Something in pesos and I didn't know the conversion rate, it was all a random number to me. This happened about 7 years ago. He wasn't with her on the trip. She was traveling with cousins, and went downstairs alone to get ice cream, and wait for them to get ready. I do not know all the details. She was extremely distraught talking about it, and it was not necessary to pry. It was clearly traumatic and even tough. I had a million more questions. I left it alone. Honey, I love you, but we agreed to save up money, so we can purchase a house. Your ransom would really set us back. I don't really think I can add a ransom line item to this month's budget. Everything is already super tight. Edit. I'm curious if you have a line item for Edit Gold, because if not it seems like reckless spending. Edit 2, reckless, how embarrassing. Edit 3, thank God my top comment isn't about being a cam girl anymore. Now honey, you know the family policy, we do not negotiate with terrorists. Viralegal here. Still remember an early case I worked on, man divorced his wife for her bingo addiction 10 to 12 times per week she went to bingo. She was 82, he was 86. But the all-time greatest to 20-somethings, they were irreconcilable, because he kept smoking her weed stash when she wasn't home. To be fair, him smoking all her weed multiple times, assumingly after some kind of a hey man don't smoke all my weed conversation, is a pretty valid reason to not be able to trust someone. Yeah, my mother-in-law and her husband were living in my house for a few months, until they got their housing situation sorted out. After the couple of weeks or so I thought my weed stash was a little light. After about a month I realized there was no way I was going through it that fast. Then one day I left work early and found them in the garage taking rips from my bong. They aren't allowed to be alone in my house anymore. Like shit, I would have given you some weed if you had asked. They didn't even have the decency to replace the weed with something else. PFFT. At least teenage me drank half my dad's vodka and replaced it with water. Had a high school party at my house one night when my parents were away. Only party I ever had. We ran out of booze late night, so we drank a liter of Bacardi and filled it up with water after. My parents weren't big drinkers. The day they dropped me off at college they went up to Maine, and about 8 hours later I get a call. They had brought the Bacardi with them and were enjoying waters and coke courtesy of me and my dumb high school friends. Thank God the statute of limitations had expired on that one. I was the legal assistant when this case came in, but this lady divorced her husband of 2 months because he got her an iPad case for her birthday instead of the expensive jewelry she wanted. I dated a girl that didn't speak to me for a day or two because I got her an iPad instead of jewelry. Her reason was because I could just use yours. I'm glad that relationship is over. Seems like an expensive way to find out your girlfriend is a selfish jerk. Edit. Okay guys, I get it, iPads aren't that expensive in comparison to other things. It's all relative. People, iPads are expensive for some people and not for others. Edit 2. Now you're complaining about the people complaining about it not being expensive. Make up your minds, people. He had an argument with the new in-laws during the wedding and moved out at around 5 AM during the first night. Marriage speedrun. Your princess is in another castle. Not a divorce lawyer, but used to practice criminal defense work. Once had a heavily pregnant client that attacked her husband of less than a year with an iron. Said client was now sitting in a police cell, sobbing and insisting that her husband deserved it and she wanted a divorce. I asked what he had supposedly done, assuming he cheated or something similar. Turns out she'd checked his phone and found a single porn site in his browsing history from over 2 years beforehand. Not the most pleasant thing to discover, but hardly worth battering him half to death and demanding a divorce. Not the most pleasant thing to discover, but hardly worth battering him half to death and demanding a divorce. Do people really care if their partners watch porn? I've never understood it. My girlfriend of 10 years wouldn't give a shit if I had porn in my browsing history, nor would I care if she did. It's just porn. Each to their own, I guess. For me personally it wouldn't be an issue, unless it was something particularly bizarre. Edit. To save time replying to comments, I'm not kink shaming here, at least not intentionally. Within the confines of my relationship, and knowing my other half pretty well, I would consider certain things to be bizarre by our standards, that is to say outside of what would be normal for us. For other individuals and or relationships, what constitutes bizarre will vary considerably, and that's absolutely fine. Provided everyone's a consenting adult, do whatever you like. Everyone's different. Noon has all the answers. Everyone's worldview has value in and of itself. Edit number 2, thanks for the silver random person. I'll stand you a pint at the weekend, sure. He was frustrated by her hoarding. She was frustrated by his utter uselessness. He filed for divorce, and she was my client. Her prized possession was a room or two full of scrapbooking materials. His prized possession was a yard full of junk cars that he never worked on. They had no children, and no real assets. They hated each other more than any two people I'd ever met, and the only terms they would agree to were these: he gets the scrapbooking stuff, and she gets the cars. My client also took the house, as he had no income, and didn't want it anyway. It was the shortest divorce decree I ever drafted. I intentionally squeezed it onto one page, and the judge and I had a good laugh over it. Once the decree was signed and filed, she hauled all the scrapbooking stuff to the yard, and he removed it to the dump. She then called the junk shop I referred her to, and had all of his cars removed from the yard. Edit, these two also fought over a toilet brush, as he didn't want to have to buy one when he moved out. I politely instructed my client to give him the goddamn toilet brush. Edit 2, thanks for the silver, kind stranger. That's the first award I've ever gotten. Yay. Edit 3, armatured. Gold. Thanks. This is so petty and so stupid. Holy jeez. Agreed, but it was effective. From what I can tell, they're both much happier now, and to some degree, I think it helped them understand that they didn't need the crap they'd been hoarding. He got drunk at the wedding, she did not like it, and decided to divorce him right after the honeymoon, which she went to without him. Moreover, this was all an elaborate scheme of divorce robbery, because the guy was loaded, and so was his entire family. They were loaded because they were a family of excellent lawyers, and he was a third-generation lawyer, with all the smarts and experience of his predecessors combined. Let's just say it did not go well for her. That's gotta be the dumbest decision ever, right? That's literally like a 7-year-old punching a Marine in their prime. Right smack in the prime. Nice try, Prime Day marketing staff.